Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the 2021 AGM for Acrow Formwork and Construction Services Limited. My name is Peter Lankin and I'll be chairing today's meeting. It's now 11 o'clock and there being a quorum present, I declare the meeting open for business. I confirm that the meeting has been properly constituted. In opening the 2021 AGM, I'd like to introduce the board and management team of Acrow Formwork and Construction Services Limited who are in attendance. Mr. Stephen Boland, Executive Director, Mrs. Margaret Prokoff, Non-Executive Director, Mr. Greg Taylor, Non-Executive Director, Mr. David Moffat, Non-Executive Director, Mrs. Melanie Alabon, Non-Executive Director, and Ms. Laurie Lefcourt, Non-Executive Director. Laurie is actually dialing in on Zoom today as well. Also in attendance is Mr. Andrew Crowther, the company's CFO, and Mr. Lee Tamplin, our company secretary. Given the health concerns attributed to the COVID-19 pandemic, in addition to guidelines and restrictions issued by Australian state and federal governments, the company considers it is appropriate to hold this AGM as a virtual meeting in a manner that is consistent with the requirements of the Treasury Laws Amended Act 2021. The virtual meeting is being held via Atomic's online meeting platform. This platform enables shareholders and proxy holders to participate in this live webcast of the meeting, as well as ask questions and submit votes. Questions can be submitted at any time. To ask a question, press on the Q&A icon. This will open a new screen. At the bottom of that screen, there is a section for you to type your question. Please start your question by typing your shareholder SRN or HIN. This will allow the moderator to identify you as a shareholder. If you'd like to ask your questions verbally, type your SRN or HIN and then type "I'd like to speak." Once you're finished typing, please hit enter on your keyboard to send. Please note that while you can submit questions at any time, I will not address them until the relevant time in the meeting. Kindly include the agenda item number which your question relates to. Please note that your questions may be moderated, or if we receive multiple questions on one topic amalgamated together. We'll do our best to answer any relevant question raised and to assist in being able to respond to as many questions as possible. I ask that you keep your question short and to the point. When we reach the formal business of the meeting, voting on all resolutions will be conducted by poll. Shareholders attending virtually and wishing to vote on the resolutions being put to the meeting can do so through Atomic's investor portal. If you are not already logged into the investor portal, instructions on how to do so can be found in the notice of meeting. A summary of these instructions can also be seen on the screen. If you have already lodged a proxy vote, please note that you do not need to vote again through the online voting portal. Your votes will already be counted in a poll on each resolution as per your proxy instruction. If you have any problem registering your shareholding with Atomic, please call the support number shown on the screen. To allow shareholders time to log in, I now declare the poll open. Online voting is now open and will remain open until I declare it closed at the end of the formal business. Your votes must have been submitted prior to the portal being closed for them to be counted. The agenda for today's meeting will be as follows. I will first provide an address, and a copy of which has been released to the ASX prior to the commencement of this meeting. The company's Managing Director and CEO, Steve Boland, will then provide an update, which will also be released to the ASX prior to the meeting. Following Steve's update, we'll proceed to the formal matters to be considered at today's AGM. Finally, there will be an opportunity for questions and discussions. Right, so moving on to my address. During financial year 21, Acrow continued on its journey of becoming the leading provider of engineered formwork sales and hire equipment to the civil infrastructure markets and the leading engineered scaffold solutions provider in Australia. Despite the disruptions caused by the COVID-19 pandemic to the general economy, Acrow delivered another year of strong financial results in financial 21. Revenue was up 22% to $106 million and pre-tax profit was up 35% to a record $10.2 million. As a result, the board declared a final dividend for the year of 1.15 cents per share, bringing the total dividends for the year to 1.9 cents per share, fully franked, up 81% on the previous year. Much of this continued success is a result of two transformational acquisitions over the last 3 years, which have significantly strengthened and expanded the business, providing Acrow with a broad suite of formwork, scaffold and screening products and engineering services to the construction and industrial maintenance markets. The business was particularly enhanced by the acquisition of Unispan in 2019, which also provided Acrow with an exclusive distribution arrangement with Ulmer, a leading global manufacturer and supplier of formwork, shoring and temporary scaffold systems. In addition, the Unispan acquisition provided Acrow with the building blocks to develop a complementary new business vertical, the industrial services business, at the time a nascent primarily Queensland-centric business. During 2021, the industrial services business expanded its operations with contract wins in New South Wales, South Australia and Tasmania, and successfully entered new market segments, including provided engineering scaffold solutions for shutdown maintenance, work in power stations and utilities, mining operations and other large manufacturing sectors. This resulted in a doubling of sales revenue during the year. Notwithstanding this, the future potential for this business remains substantial, and we continue our push into these new markets and new market segments. Much of Acrow's success is also due to the depth and talent of the entire Acrow team, from back office services to sales and marketing, relationship management, supply chain management, logistics, and our engineers, all working together to deliver solutions which differentiate our products and services and help build our reputation and success over our market segments. Securing contracts on flagship projects such as Melbourne Metro Rail, Brisbane Cross River Rail, Bruce Highway, Snowy Hydro, to name just a few, is a testament to the strength of our team and the products and services we are offering. Our business all share an entrepreneurial and customer-focused culture, and teamwork across the business units has provided numerous opportunities to cross-sell our expanded product suite and engineering capabilities. Notably, during this period of growth, we have been careful to maintain a prudent capital management approach, only building on our portfolio of assets subject to a rigid investment principle of achieving a minimum of 40% return on investment during the first year of purchase. After the balance sheet date, we raised $10.5 million through a placement at 38 cents per share to fund future growth opportunities in our industrial service and civil formwork business. I would like to acknowledge the support of our existing and new shareholders who believe in our business and help make this capital raise successful. This capital now places us in a very strong position to take advantage of the large pool of opportunities in the industrial service sector and the transport infrastructure construction boom that is currently underway. As Acrow evolves, we have also ensured that our board is refreshed with the skills and experience required to guide our future development. I'd like to thank Josh May, who retired from the board in October 2020, and acknowledge Greg Taylor and Margaret Prokop for their service. Greg will retire after this AGM and Margaret on December the 31st, 2021. It's a pleasure also to welcome to the board two new directors, Melanie Alabon and Laurie Lefcourt. Melanie joined us on the 1st of September 2021 and is an experienced global people manager and company director, having held executive human resource roles at Pacific Brands, Seven Group and Newcrest. Melanie is also currently a non-executive director of ASX-listed Boom Logistics. Effective October 1, 2021, Laurie Lefcourt, an experienced non-executive director and senior finance executive, also joined our board. She has held senior finance roles at Queensland Rail, Rio Tinto, and is currently non-executive director of ASX-listed Tamarwood and Advanced Nanotech. In closing, and on behalf of the board, I'd like to express my gratitude to Steve Boland, his leadership team, Acrow's dedicated team of employees, our suppliers, our clients, and our shareholders for the part they've played in Acrow's success to date. As we embark on what is projected to be a long-lived civil infrastructure and construction cycle, with spending currently estimated to be in excess of $100 billion over the next 5 years, we're excited about the future for the company. Due to our innovative engineering, formwork and scaffolding expertise, our broad product suite, we believe Acrow is well positioned for many years of continued growth. Thank you, and I'd now like to hand over to Steve for his update.
Thank you, Peter, and thanks, ladies and gentlemen, for taking the time to join us today for our AGM. And I'm very proud to give, I guess, an overview of the FY21 year, but also provide an update as to current trading circumstances in the business for FY22. So firstly, I think it's good for me to just reiterate what the strategy of the business has been over the last few years. That's been very consistent. Some I guess new strategies have developed over that time, but there are really 5 pillars by which we focus on the growth of the business, all focused on growing shareholder return over time. So firstly, we have become the leading engineered formwork sales and hire equipment solutions provider in Australia. So we couldn't say that 3 years ago, but certainly over the last 3 years, through a number of initiatives, we've now got to a position where we are clearly the market leader across the country in formwork sales and hire. Secondly, as Peter touched on as part of the Unispan acquisition, we've got an opportunity now that we're grabbing with both hands to grow our scaffold industrial scaffolding business. We have aspirations to take that business nationally. It's been a Queensland base for Unispan. We've now won significant contracts in New South Wales, entering South Australia and entering Tasmania, and we're very keen to grow that business nationally over the next period of time. Thirdly, an absolute key pillar has been about our people. The business exists and is successful because of the quality of the people who work in it. We've done a lot of work in recruitment and also in sort of promotion, internal promotion over the last period of time. I'd say very clearly now we're getting towards best of breed in terms of the talent that we have in the business. Our 4th pillar is about organic growth, and it's real organic growth, and it's something that I'm really focused on at the moment in this business. With the opportunities that we've developed through buying the Natfull business 3 years ago, buying the Unispan business 2 years ago, businesses that were predominantly focused in the New South Wales and Queensland markets, we've now got a range of products that we can take nationally. Acrow is a national business. We've got offices in every state, every capital city, and the ability to take new products and open up new channels for revenue in Western Australia, South Australia, Tasmania, Victoria for a range of products is opening up new channels for revenue, and I see as a really key part of the Acrow growth story over the next period of time. And finally, we are an acquisitive company. We have made 2 acquisitions since we became a public company in April 18. They've been very successful acquisitions, and we've always got an eye for the right opportunity. And I'm particularly interested at the moment in that industrial services business nationally. So, we don't have anything specific at the moment, but we're certainly a company that, in the right circumstances, will continue to be acquisitive. In terms of the key highlights for FY21, all the key metrics were very much in the right direction. So $105.7 million in revenue, up 22%, EBITDA of 24.3, up 25%, pre-tax profit 10.2, 35%, NPAT 8.7, 10%. So all of the key metrics are going in the right direction. We've had good performance in our share price relative to the market over the last few years. And being in the company that we are, we're very focused on our injury frequency rates and our ability not to injure people in the business. Now, whilst the frequency rate increased in 21, that was very indicative of the growth we've had in our industrial services business, in which we employ a lot more labour than we do in other parts of the business. So, we're highly focused on that. That represents about 6 lost time injuries across the course of the 21 year. I think it's worth reiterating over what the sort of picture of this business has been over at least the last 6 years, pre becoming a public company and in the first few years of being a public company. So you can see I'm very proud of the fact that I'm very focused on the fact that we've grown this business's revenue and EBITDA every year. So for 6 years, you can see revenue's gone from $62 million up to our forecast revenue for 22 now between 130 and 135 million. It'll be at the top end of that range. And also in our EBITDA, where we've gone from 8.3 now, you probably need to add about $4 million to do the proper AASB comparison to each of the numbers in 17, 18 and 19. But even when you add that number, you'll still see that we've had uninterrupted growth in our EBITDA from, call it as a comparative basis, circa $12 million in 17 up to $32.5 million in 22 is our current forecast. The key achievements of 21, I think there have been 4 very clear things that we've done in Acrow over the last 3 years of being a public company that have transformed this company. The first one was our significant pivot at the time of listing to focus more on civil infrastructure formwork and far less on residential scaffold. The second was the acquisition of Natform just over 3 years ago. The third was the acquisition of Unispan just 2 years ago. And the fourth has now been the growth of the industrial services business outside of its traditional Queensland based nationally. They are the four things that have transformed Acrow over this period of time. And all the achievements that are in this, the key achievements on this list here for 21 have a link to all of those acquisitions. Firstly, the absolute key performance indicator for the business is around our hire contracts secured. Over the course of the last financial year, we were up 34%, and that's in terms of the total value of the hire contracts that we secured. That's now going into our current numbers. It's probably a 3 to 6 month lead indicator, and it's why our current performance is at the level it's at. We can see that coming through. Secondly, the Melbourne formwork momentum. You know, we taken a business in Melbourne that was doing $2 million of revenue in formwork 3 years ago to in excess of $14 million last year. It was a very important part of the whole growth story. And it's come off the back of some very significant civil infrastructure projects where we are by far the predominant supplier in a market where we previously hardly even operated at all in that sector. Thirdly, industrial scaffold revenue up 114% year on year between 20 and 21, and significant further growth that I'll touch on in a second in this current financial year. 31% increase in Natform revenue nationally in 21 compared to 20. Significant growth in our Queensland market and good solid growth in the Victoria market in which Natform previously didn't operate. The next point again is around the new products that we've been bringing into states that previously didn't have them. Western Australia is currently a prime example where we've now got Ulma products operating in the Western Australian market that are opening up new revenue channels for us of well in excess of $100,000 a month at the moment. That, again, as I said, very important part of our future. And our product sales growth, 35% of our total revenue now comes out of sales. It complements the higher revenue, and I'll talk about that in a second a bit further. I wanted to highlight now just how successful this pivot has been away from the residential markets. Going back to 17, you can see that 55% of our revenue and sales contribution was coming out of the residential scaffolding market. Today, that is 16%. And it's actually reducing further into the 22 year. We made this decision, very clearly. They're totally different markets. The residential scaffold market is highly fragmented. It's price driven, and it's basically a commoditized market versus the high end civil infrastructure formwork markets where it's the complete opposite. And you are valued by customers on your engineering smarts, your capabilities, your equipment fit for purpose, all the things you want to be valued on other than price. And you can see that on the bottom chart there, the group product sales, now $36 million worth of product sales in 21, up from 22 the previous year, making nearly $14 million in margin. It's a very important part of what we do now in terms of getting those customers who choose to buy product rather than hire product. They buy systems. So they buy our system in preference to some of our other European-based competitors in formwork. Once you've got them on using your system, you get top-up sales and you also get top-up hire opportunities. So it's a completely complementary revenue stream to our key higher revenue stream. Peter mentioned some of the large projects that we've worked on, and we have 6 of them here, and it's really interesting. There's sort of a transition from the top 3 now to the bottom 3. So we've been very successful on Sydney Metro, Melbourne Metro Rail and the Melbourne Western Distributor over the last couple of years. We're still winning significant packages on the Melbourne Metro Rail. We've just won another $650,000 package last week that will be giving us revenue into the early part of the new calendar year. And the step that we're really transitioning now, those 3 bottom projects are really in the next couple of years going to be the large generators of revenue for us. The Brisbane Cross River Rail, the Bruce Highway upgrade between Karoi and Curra in Queensland, and Snowy Hydro. In the 22 financial year, the Bruce Highway upgrade will no doubt be our biggest revenue generating project. In excess of $12 million of revenue will be generated by us on that project this year. Snowy Hydro will do about $8 million probably in the 22 year. That will transition, I would suggest, over the next couple of years to being our biggest single generating project. So, I mean, as you can see, these are absolute marquee civil infrastructure projects across the country, and we've got significant generating of revenue, significant footprint on all of these projects. few examples of the work we do, which is very, very different than what this business looked like 3 years ago. So this is this first case study here is a multi-purpose gantry for part of the Melbourne Metro, so the State Library Station. So I want to highlight here that the equipment we're using, which is an Ulmer product called an MK system, it's the flexibility of this product. It's got so many different utilizations. The previous biggest job that we used this product on last year was the Sun Metal zinc refinery upgrade in Townsville, where basically the same system in a totally different application was put to use. So this is a highly, as you can see from this is not straightforward engineering at all, but it's the flexibility, the innovation and the smarts of our team to come up with a solution for the customer that has been given us an absolute edge, especially on this Metro Rail project. The $600,000 additional package that I mentioned that we won last week is another one of these gantries going to the Little Flinders Street station early next year. So this is anything but sort of meat and potatoes formwork. The second project I want to talk about is in our industrial sector. So we've now got a scaffolding system that can sit inside furnaces, the throats of furnaces at power stations when they are being maintained. So if you can imagine, if you see that sort of schematic design in the bottom right hand of that page, that system goes inside the throat of a furnace and allows the maintenance work to be done inside the furnace. So it's absolutely specialised equipment. You can't get this stuff wrong. Safety is primary in this, and we've now developed that system that's giving us an absolute edge. To be frank, we're batting at about 100% at the moment. In fact, we are batting at 100% for the work that we've been tendering on in this space over the last sort of 5 to 6 months. And then the last case study I want to talk about is a complete innovation of the business. Now, it might look like a very simple project compared to the other two, but that prop is a prop that's is capable of supporting 150 tonnes. So that's the highest level prop in our formwork industry now, and it was a gap in our market offering. So our national engineering manager and his team designed and commissioned that prop. It's now PowerShore 150 system is what we're calling it. And basically the first lot of that gear that we purchased went straight out into this job, which was in 31 Duncan Street in Fortitude Valley in Brisbane, where what was going on above this, so this is a car park, it's like a 5-storey multi-level car park, and above that, I think it's like a 10-storey tower block was being built on top of the car park. So they had to prop the car park up effectively while they were building on top of it. And using our prop, we got around about a 95% return. So we basically paid for that equipment on the first job. So that's a great innovation by our engineering team. Next, I want to talk about the further development of industrial services. So, you can see we've gone from 10 million of revenue in 20 to 21.7, and now we're forecasting probably closer to 40 than 35 in 22, and with very similar returns in EBITDA. It's got similar dynamics to formwork, this sector, in that it's again not a price-driven market. It's about quality, it's about service, it's about engineering smarts, it's about safety reputation. And we've been incredibly successful in this last 6 to 12 months in developing outside of our traditional Queensland market to winning contracts in New South Wales at Liddell, Mount Piper, Bayswater and Araring power stations, at Snowy. And our biggest contract, which we've just concluded the shut, is the Visy paper mill at Tumut, where we've got a 3-year plus 2-year option contract. It's around about $2.5 million contract per year. We've just concluded the first shut, highly successful, on time, on budget, and very much to the satisfaction of the client. You can see the types of people that we're working with: Instatex, Snowy Hydro, Origin, UGL, Visy, Monadelphous, SRG, Downer, etc. These are big organisations. And we've developed a very strong reputation for ourselves now out of Queensland into New South Wales, and starting to win a couple of smaller contracts in South Australia and Tasmania. Very keen to grow this business nationally. Certainly the Western Australian market is probably the biggest market in the country for industrial services, and we've got aspirations of growing into that market. Our capital position and cash flow. So we've done a couple of things in the last 6 to 12 months to improve our flexibility. Firstly, we refinanced our debt facility with Westpac in May of 21 and got ourselves expanded headroom of $13.5 million. And then, as Peter mentioned, we successfully raised $10.5 million post 30 June on 22nd of July. That we've already put at least $7 million of that to work in additional capital CapEx orders for what we know is in front of us in the business. I've mentioned quite a bit recently to various shareholders I'm talking to that this business is in growth phase. We'll continue to be in growth phase for some time yet, at least the next few years. So, this year we're looking at $20 million in CapEx spend, 15 million of it in growth. And the opportunities at the moment, I've never seen anything quite like it in my time in this industry, and it's a cycle that's not going to change anytime soon. In fact, right at the moment, we don't have enough equipment to be able to do all of the work that we could be doing today. We've got a lot of gear being ordered. It's now far more difficult and I'm going to say more complicated to get equipment from overseas. I think a lot of people understand that. What used to be a 2 or 3 month process is now more like a 5 or 6 month process. So we've really put a lot of effort at the moment in getting ahead of the game in terms of getting our logistics right, getting our relationships with our suppliers right, and understanding the forward sort of forecasting of what the various markets are going to do to be able to make sure we've got the equipment suitable to be able to take advantage of the uplifts that we're seeing. But despite all of that, we will finish the FY22 year probably around 1 time turn of EBITDA in net debt, and probably slightly below that. So, our gearing remains, very comfortable, and we're very happy with that position. We don't really want to be above 1. We're above 1 at the moment, given the cycle sort of flow. But by the end of this financial year, we'll be back probably slightly under 1. I spoke earlier about our people. It's become absolutely crucial, clearly, in any successful business. But the change in the team in Acrow and our approach to it over the last 3 years has been quite dramatic. Strong focus on succession planning. We're developing a real depth of talent, especially in engineering, where there's no doubt that it's our engineering team that is making the fundamental difference in Acrow's performance versus our competitors. We are very focused on attracting the best new talent into the industry. And even recently, you can see that a number of new people have entered the business. A new general manager in Victoria, Brad Craven, a new general manager in New South Wales, Peter Fehrenbach. Peter Belden, as the National Operations Manager of Industrial Service, has been absolutely vital in us winning the Visy contracts and the Snowy contracts. We've got a new National Engineering Manager, Evan Field, commencing in January. We will probably then have the 2 best formwork engineers across the country working for us in Evan and Matthew Caparella, who is now being promoted to Chief Operating Officer. And Rob Paravel starts actually with our business today as General Manager of People and Culture. His previous job was actually as the People and Culture Manager for Cellini and Preglio, focused on the Snowy project. So he's a very good guy to have coming into our business. But just as important is the internal promotion. So I mentioned Matt Caparella has been promoted to Chief Operating Officer. Matthew's 31 years old. Yuri Rodica is the National General Manager now of Industrial Services, taken out of the Queensland business and now running the whole thing nationally. And Jason Majan is the National General Manager now of Natform. Jason's 29 years old. Right. We've got an incredibly talented group of young people in this business. I've been in management roles for 30 odd years, and I've never seen a more talented group of young people in a business than we've got in Acrow at the moment. So the future is incredibly bright when you look at the quality of the people. Our Queensland General Manager, Jan Pinar, who's not on this list, but Jan runs 50% of the business, and Jan's 35 years old. So we've got some great young people in the business. Our culture is very much about safety first. It's all about our customers. It's all about providing solutions. It's all about becoming the employer of choice in the industry, setting and exceeding the industry standards. There is a very open, honest, and constructive approach across all of the team in Acrow. It's very honest. It's brutally honest, and we want to continue to be that way. And we're very much one team across a series of branches that operate nationally with one common focus. So in terms of this year, we're going into, the short-term growth opportunities, we have, as I've shown earlier, we're going to get significant growth out of industrial services this year. May well double that revenue again from 21 to 22. We are starting to get very good market share penetration in Formwork Sydney, which has always been one of our weaker points, but we're definitely getting some growth there. Queensland's going to have a cracking year. So the job profile in Queensland with projects like Cross River Rail and Karoi to Curra were important because we've got we have 55-60% market share in formwork in Queensland anyway, but our ability to win almost every package we're tendering on in those projects has been, gives us a very, very strong picture in Queensland formwork this year. In the Natform business, we'll continue to consolidate what's already a very good business in New South Wales. We are growing market share in Queensland and Victoria, and we're commencing operations in South Australia. We've just won We won a contract a couple of years ago for Natform in South Australia. We've just won a contract now that starts next year, and we're about to win our second one. So again, new channels for revenue opening up, which goes to that next point. So fully integrating all that product offering across the country, opening up all much opportunities for their products in WA, SA, Tasmania, Victoria, New South Wales is all adding to our revenue picture. And then continue to focus on our product sales and ensure, and we've had a very strong start to the year in product sales. In terms of our outlook, year to date to the end of October, our hire contracts number is up 54% on the prior corresponding period. And we're having another very, very good month in this regard in November already. We recently put out some updated market guidance. We referred to the fact that our October revenue and EBITDA was at a record level in October. November levels will be higher than the October levels. In the formwork area, as I mentioned, Queensland incredibly strong, very, very good in Western Australia. Our results in Western Australia at the moment are the best they've been for over 5 years. Victoria will be stable following a very strong 21, and we're definitely growing market share in New South Wales. In the Natform business, the first few months of Natform New South Wales this financial year have been relatively slow, I guess due to the construction industry shutdown in New South Wales for a few weeks. A lot of jobs were delayed, but our work in hand is as good as it's ever been. We've won a tremendous amount of work in the last few months, and that will translate to an incredibly strong second half in FY22 for Natform New South Wales. And as I mentioned, industrial services, will be up circa $40 million in revenue. So all of that leads us to a very, very confident position in terms of the guidance that we've previously provided in the last couple of weeks to the market. So our guidance of revenue of 130, 135, EBITDA 31.5 to 32.5, NPAT 13.8 to 14.5, and EPS 5.8 to 6.2 will be the top end of that guidance at the minimum, is my firm belief. So you can see significant increases, and very, very happy to say that when you see our half-year results, we're clearly nearly 5 months of the way through the year already. When you see our half-year results, you will see that we will have achieved at least 50% pretty much of what those targets are, the high end of our target range for the year in our first half results. So all in all, very, very good position in the business. It's a very exciting place to work at the moment, and incredibly confident for what you'll see for FY22 out of the Acrow business. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Steve. I'd just also like to remind shareholders that there will be an opportunity for informal Q&A at the end of the meeting, so please save any questions of a general nature until then. We'll now move to the formal business as set out in the notice of meeting. The notice of annual general meeting was mailed to all registered members on or about the 22nd of October 2021 and is to be taken as read. Voting on all resolutions will be conducted by poll. For the purposes of the poll, I appoint Adrian Atkinson of Atomic, the company share registry, who have examined and prepared summaries of the proxy forms received to act as returning officer and to conduct the poll. Shareholders in attendance virtually that have already submitted a vote by proxy should note that your votes will already be counted towards the poll. You do not need to lodge another vote unless you wish to change your proxy instruction. Shareholders in attendance virtually who have not submitted a vote by proxy and who wish to vote on resolutions being put to the meeting today can do so by registering your shareholding with Atomic. Instructions on how to register your holdings were provided in the notice of meeting and can also be seen on the screen. As advised earlier, online voting is open and will remain open until the poll is declared closed. Your votes must have been submitted prior to the poll being closed for them to count. Are there any questions in relation to the voting process? Proxies have been inspected and all those validly lodged have been accepted. Proxies have been received representing 119,654,990 shares, or 47% of the issued capital of the company. All undirected proxies or open votes that have been nominated the chairman of the meeting as their proxy will be cast in favour of each resolution in the notice of extraordinary general meeting. The first item of business is to receive the company's annual financial report for the year ended 30th of June 2021. The financial report and the reports of the directors and the auditors are now laid before the meeting. There will be no vote on this item, and it is a discussion-only item. The auditor for the 30th of June 2021 financial year, Nicholas Smetana of Grant Thornton Proprietary Limited, is present to take questions relevant to the conduct of the audit and the preparation and content of the independent auditor's report. Are there any questions or comments on the financial report or the reports of the directors and auditors? No. Are there any questions or comments on the management of the company? Are there any questions relevant to the conduct of the audit and the preparation and content of the auditor's report to be put to the auditor? We will now proceed to the resolutions set out in the notice of annual general meeting. For those voting on the resolutions online, you're advised not to submit your vote until you have selected your votes for all resolutions. Resolution number 1 is as follows: to consider and, if thought fit, to pass with or without amendment, resolution number 1, the adoption of the REM report as an ordinary resolution. If you wish to discuss this resolution, please submit your questions via the Q&A. The proxies received in relation to this resolution are on the screen. I now put the motion and note that shareholders can vote via the online portal. Okay, we'll now move to resolution number 2, and it is to consider and, if thought fit, to pass with or without amendment, resolution number 2, election of Melanie Alabon as a director as an ordinary resolution. If you wish to discuss this resolution, please submit your questions via the Q&A. The proxies received in relation to this resolution are on the screen. I now put the motion and note that shareholders can vote via the online portal. Okay, resolution number 3. To consider and, if thought fit, to pass with or without amendment, resolution number 3, election of Laurie Lefcourt as a director as an ordinary resolution. If you wish to discuss this resolution, please submit your questions via the Q&A. The proxies received in relation to this resolution are on the screen. I now put the motion and note that shareholders can vote via the online portal. As the next resolution relates to myself, I hand over the chair to Steve Boland.
Thank you, Peter. Resolution 4 is as follows: to consider and, if thought fit, to pass with or without amendment, resolution 4, re-election of Peter Lancken as a director as an ordinary resolution. If you wish to discuss this resolution, please submit your questions via the Q&A. The proxies received in relation to this resolution are now on the screen. I now put the motion and note that shareholders can vote via the online portal. I now hand the chair back to Peter Lancken.
Thanks, Steve. So we'll now turn to resolution number 5, which is as follows: to consider and, if thought fit, to pass with or without an amendment, resolution number 5, the re-election of David Moffat as a director as an ordinary resolution. If you wish to discuss this resolution, please submit your questions via the Q&A. The proxies received in relation to this resolution are on the screen. I now put the motion and note that shareholders can vote via the online portal. Okay, we'll now go to resolution number 6, and to consider and, if thought fit, to pass with or without amendment, resolution number 6, ASX listing rule 7.1A, approval of future issue of securities as a special resolution. If you wish to discuss this resolution, please submit your questions via the Q&A. The proxies received in relation to this resolution are on the screen, and I now put the motion and note that shareholders can vote via the online portal. Okay, resolution number 7 is as follows. To consider and if thought fit to pass with or without amendment, resolution number 7, ratification of prior issue of placement shares under listing rule 7.1A as an ordinary resolution. If you wish to discuss this resolution, please submit your questions via the Q&A. Okay, the proxies received in relation to this resolution are on the screen, and I now put the motion and note that shareholders can vote via the online portal. Resolution number 8 is as follows. To consider and if thought fit to pass with or without amendment, resolution number 8, ratification of prior issue of placement of shares under listing rule 7.1 as an ordinary resolution. If you wish to discuss this resolution, please submit your questions via Q&A. The proxies received in relation to this resolution are on the screen, and I now put the motion and note that shareholders can vote on the online portal. This being the final resolution to be voted on today, I remind those shareholders voting online not to click on next until you've selected your vote for all resolutions. That concludes the resolutions to be voted on today. As noted, we are conducting a poll on all resolutions, so I note that the poll is already open. Can all shareholders voting online please now ensure that they have submitted their votes? I'll allow another 30 seconds before the poll is closed. If you have any questions in relation to your submissions online, in relation to your submission of online votes, please send them through the Q&A function now. There being no further questions, I declare the poll closed. The staff at Atomic will now process the poll and the results will be announced to the ASX once they are available. As mentioned earlier, we'll now have the opportunity for any questions of a general nature. However, before doing this, I declare the formal business of the meeting closed at 11:40. Yep, thereabouts. I now invite shareholders to ask the questions, any questions of a general nature, and you can do so by submitting them through Q&A. So the question is, in any future capital raise, can existing shareholders please be given the opportunity to participate? And look, I think it is a valid question, and I know we did get a couple of shareholders, Steve, at the $10.5 million raise, who were a bit disappointed they weren't given the opportunity to participate. In that circumstance, we felt with the requirements of the capital raise, the timing that we needed to conduct it in, the process that we adopted was not to do it as an opportunity where we could invite all shareholders in, but we do take the question, and I think that we'll take that on notice at any future capital raises to do our best to include all shareholders. Okay, can we hear from the two newly elected directors, please, to speak about what they bring to the board? So, Melanie, would you like to have just a minute of what you...
So my experience has been on a global level, but have been an Australian-based executive for most of my working career, with a myriad across countries or parts of the world like Asia and Europe, predominantly in industrial services and mining, manufacturing, some FMCG. And really the main area I bring is people, culture, remuneration expertise, safety expertise, and general leadership.
Thanks, Melanie. Laurie.
Oh, hi, everyone. So my background is in finance-related roles. I've been with a lot of large and small companies over my career, leading finance teams, dealing with strategy, risk management, governance processes, and really working with the finance teams to be better business partners. So my background is really about helping to contribute to providing the organization with better information to make better decisions, and helping to guide the young finance team through the growth phase.
Thanks, Laurie. Well, it appears there are no further questions, so I'd like to thank everyone for their attendance. And as advised earlier, the results of the poll will be announced to the ASX once they're available. So thank you all.